Dear friends, Pinwatini, good evening and welcome to our online broadcast here from the London Mindfulness Meditation Center. So as you know, we go live every day at 7 o'clock sharing our evening Buddha Puja with you so that you can participate from home or wherever you are in the religious observance, or even dedicate an hour every day from your day-to-day activities, commit yourself to spiritual practice, and also listen to chanting every day, which also is invoking blessings for your good health and happiness. So we share the chanting, wishing you all as an online community a very peaceful living, especially during this time of difficulty, to stay blessed by the virtues of the Triple Gem, by the compassion of the Buddha, and also develop peace of mind through meditation. If your friends do not have Facebook, you can share our YouTube channel, lmmc.online, especially to those who may be ill or are affected by the COVID-19, so to receive the blessings and the compassion of the Buddha that is embodied in the Paritta Suttas. So today being Thursday, after our chanting of Ratana Sutta, we will do our weekly meditation practice on mindfulness, having contemplated a few thoughts on mindfulness as always. So before we begin our Buddha Puja, it is customary that we observe 5 precepts. So please say Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa 3 times. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Pānātipātā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi, Adinādānā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi, Kāmesu miccācārā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi, Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi, Surāmiraya majjapamā daṭṭhānā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi, තිසරණේන සද්ධින් පංචශීලං ධම්මං සාදුකං සුරක්ඛිතං කତ୍වා අප්පමාදේන සම්පාදේ තබ්බං. So let's worship the Buddha together. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijjācarana sampanno sugato lokavido anuttaro purisa dhammasarathi sattha deva manussanam buddho Bhagavati buddhaṃ jīvita pariyantaṃ saranam gacchāmi ye ca buddhā atitā ca ye ca buddhā anāgatā paccupannā ca ye buddhā ahaṃ vandāmi sabbadā. Natti me saranang anyang buddho me saranang varang etena sacca vajjena hotu me jaya mangalang uttamangena vandehang padapang suvaruttamang buddheyo khalito doso buddho khamatu tang mamang swakhato bhagavata dhammo sandittiko akaliko ehi passiko opanayiko paccattang veditabbo vinyuhiti. Dhammang jīvita pariyantaṃ saranam gacchāmi ye ca dhamma atitā ca ye ca dhamma anāgatā paccupannā ca ye dhamma ahaṃ vandāmi sabbadā. Natti me saranam anyam Dhammo me saranam varang etena sacca vajjena hotu me jaya mangalang uttamangena vandehang dhamman ca tividhang varang dhammeyo khalito dosa dhammo khamatu tang mamang. Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Ujjupatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Nyāyapatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Sāmīci patipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho Yadidang cattari purisa yugani atta purisa puggala Esa bhagavato sāvaka sangho Ahuneyo pahuneyo Dakhineyo anjali karaniyo Anuttarang punyaketang lokasati Sanghang jivita pariyantang saranang gacchami ye ca sangha atita ca ye ca sangha anagata paccapanna ca ye sangha ahang vandami sabbada natti me saranang anyang sangho me saranang varang etena sacca vajjena hotu me jaya mangalang uttamangena vandehang sanganca tividottamang Sangheyo khalito doso sangho khamatu tang mamang Kanasarappadittene dīpene tamadang sina Tiloka dīpang sambuddhang pujayami tamonudang Vannagandha gunapetang etang kusuma santating Pujayami munindassa siripada saroruhe Pujemi buddhang kusumena nene punyena metena cahotu mokkang Puppang milayati yata idamme kayo tatayati vinasa bhavang Adhivasetu no bhante paniyang parikappitang Anukampang upadaya patiganhatu uttame Adhivasetu no bhante gilana paccayang imang Anukampang upadaya patiganhatu uttame Adhivasetu no bhante gilana paccayang imang Anukampang upadaya patiganhatu uttame Adhivasetu no bhante sabbang saddhaya pujitang Anukampang upadaya patiganhatu uttame Vandami cetiyang sabbang sabbatani supatittitang Saririka dhātu mahabodhing Buddha rūpaṃ sakalang sadā Yassa mūle nisinnova sabbāri vijayang akā Pato sabbanyutang sattha vandetang bodhipādapang Ime ete mahabodhi lokanatena pujita Ahampite namassami bodhiraja namattute Kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang Acchayang khamame bhante puripanye tathagate Kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang Acchayang khamame dhamme sandittika akalika Kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang Acchayang khamame sangha supatipanne anuttara Ettavata ca amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang Sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya Ettavata ca amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang Sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya Ettavata ca amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang Sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya Idang me ñātīnaṃ hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idang me ñātīnaṃ hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idang me ñātīnaṃ hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Imina punya kammene māmi bāla samāgamu satang samāgamu hotu yāva nibbāna pattiya. Idang me punyang āsavakkaya vahang hotu sabba dukkha pamuncatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for joining with us so far. That was the end of our Buddha Puja that we share with you every day at 7 o'clock. We also share our chanting, the chanting of the suttas to bless you for your good health, happiness, success and prosperity. And especially during this time of difficulty, we compassionately wish you all the very best, and also may you stay blessed by the virtues of the Triple Gem, by the blessings of the Buddha, and also by the compassion of the Buddha that is embodied in the chantings. So may you stay blessed, may you enjoy good health and happiness, may you also develop courage and determination to face the difficult times ahead that might come about. So if you know or if you are ill, please listen to the chanting with great attention. If you know anyone who is ill, you may want to share the chanting or bear them in your thoughts, wishing speedy recovery for their well-being. May they also enjoy good health after speedy recovery, and may they continue to develop courage and determination to face the difficult times. May they wholesomely enjoy good health thereafter. As always, we dedicate the chanting to all our key workers, including the NHS staff, doctors and nurses. May they also enjoy good health. May they develop courage and determination to continue their valuable services to the nation, the patients and their families. So with that great aspiration, we chant the Ratan Sutta as always. So please listen to the chanting with great attention and respect. Samanta Cakkavalesu atra gacchantu devata saddhammang munirajassa sunantu sagga mokkhadan Paritta savana kalu ayang bhadanta Paritta savana kalu ayang bhadanta Paritta savana kalu ayang bhadanta Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Yani dabhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vayantalikhe Sabbeva bhuta sumana bhavantu atho pisakkacca sunantu bhasitam Tasmahi bhutani samita sabbe mettam karotha manusya pajaye Divacharatto chaharanti ye baling tasmahi nirakkata appamatta Yang kinci vittam idhavahurang vasagge suvayang ratanang panitam Nano samang atti tathagatena idampi buddhe ratanang panitam Etena saccena suvatti hotu khayang viragang amatang panitang yadajjaga sakya muni samahito natena dhammena samadde kinci idampi dhamme ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu yang buddha setta parivannai sucing samadhimanantari kanyamahu samadhinatena samona vijjati idampi dhamme ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu ye puggala attha satang pasattha cattari etani yugani honti te dakhineya sugatasya savaka ete sudinnani mahappalani idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu ye suppayutta manasa dalhene nikamino gotama sasanami te pattipatta amatang vigayhe laddha mudha nibbuting bhunjamana idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu yathinde khilo pathaving sitosiya chatubhivate bhiya sampakampiyo tathupamang sappurisang vadami yo ariya saccani avecca passati idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu ye ariya saccani vibhavayanti gambhira panyena sudesitani kincapi te honti busappamattana te bhavang attamang adiyanti idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu sahavassa dassana sampadaya tayassu dhamma jahita bhavanti sakkaya ditthi vicikiccitanca silabbatang vapi yadatti kinci chatuhapaye ca vippamutto cacabithanani abhabbo katum idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu kincapi sokammang karoti papakang kayena vaca udcetasava abhabbo sotasya paticchadaya abhabbata dittha padasya vutta idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu vanappa gumbe yatha pussitagge gimhanamase patamasmin gimhe tathupamang dhammavarang adesai nibbanagaming paramang hitaye idampi buddhe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu varo varanya varado varaharo anuttaro dhammavarang adesai idampi buddhe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu khinang puranang navang natti sambhavang viratta citta ayatike bhavasming te khina bija avirul hichhanda nibbanti dhira yathayang padipo idampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu yani dabhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vayantalikhe tathāgatang deva manussa pujitang buddhang namassāma suvatti hotu Yāni dabhutāni samāgatāni bummāni vāyāni vayantalikhe tathāgataṃ deva manussa pūjitaṃ dhammam namassāma suvatti hotu Yāni dabhutāni samāgatāni bummāni vāyāni vayantalikhe tathāgataṃ deva manussa pūjitaṃ saṅgham namassāma suvatti hotu etena sacca vajjena dukkha upasamentu te etena sacca vajjena bhaya upasamentu te etena sacca vajjena roga upasamentu te Sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sanghanubhavena buddha ratanam dhamma ratanam sangha ratanam tinnam ratananam anubhavena chaturasiti sahassa dhammakkhandhanubhavena Pitakattayanubhavena jinasavakanubhavena Sambete roga sambete bhaya sabbete antaraya Sabbete upaddava sabbete dunnimitta Sabbete avamangala vinassantu Ayu vaddhako dhana vaddhako siri vaddhako yasa vaddhako vanna vaddhako Sukha vaddhako hotu sabbada Dukkha roga bhaya vera soka sabbe paddava Aneka antaraya pi vinassantu ca tejasa Jaya siddhi dhanam labham sotti bhagyam sukham balam Siriyayu ca vanno ca bhogam buddhi ca yasava Satavassa ca ayu ca jiva siddhi bhavantu te Akasattha ca bhummattha devanaga mahiddhika Punyantam anumoditva chirang rakkhantu lokasasanam Akasattha ca bhummattha devanaga mahiddhika Punyantam anumoditva chirang rakkhantu dhamma desanam Akasattha ca bhummattha devanaga mahiddhika Punyantam anumoditva chirang rakkhantu mang paranti Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So if you have just joined us, that is the end of our chanting this evening. Wishing you good health, happiness, success and prosperity. And if you are ill, may you have a speedy recovery. May you all stay blessed during this time of difficulty, during the pandemic. May you stay safe and be protected by the virtues of the Triple Gem and the compassion of the Buddha. So with that righteous aspiration, we chanted the Ratana Sutta, and if you are not aware, we go live every day at 7 o'clock sharing our evening Buddha Puja, chanting and meditation. So if you are free, please to join us and commit yourself to religious observance at least once a day, every evening from 7 to 8. So thank you for joining with us so far. So as today is Thursday, we will not be doing our Metta Bhavana as we do with other days. Today we practice mindfulness-based meditation. So we will take a very short break, about a minute's break, and stay tuned. See you soon. So welcome back. As today is Thursday, we will engage with our regular practice, weekly practice of mindfulness. As I always say, 30 minutes of practice is not substantial for a week. It should be a daily practice, but you can make this as a top-up session, or even just to remind you some techniques, or even remind us a few points that you can make or you can benefit when you practice mindfulness. So we have been focusing on the word mindfulness, or person who is ardently meditating and developing what we say clear comprehension, sati sampajanya, clear comprehension, by developing awareness so that you do not look into the world, or you do not actually look into the objects with craving or even aversion, so like or dislike. Simply put, we will not be forming opinions about our experiences. So in a way, this is what we would say wisdom, because with wisdom at the forefront, or with the realization, what we do is we do not form opinions but try to observe as it is. Because at other times, as you know, we use our understanding or experiences or knowledge to see or experience something, or even conclusively see something. But due to the teachings or the understanding of impermanence, we know that every perception or every understanding is a result of something different, because every condition is different. You cannot observe something with the similar experience you had previously, so the conditions are different, so therefore it is impermanent. So when we say sampajanya, is about developing some sort of comprehension that every moment is different and every experience can be different, and every observation is also going to be different. And we use that as a training tool. So in meditation, we use an object as a training tool to understand that reality. So sati sampajanya. Okay, so the word comes from pajanati, or know, or atapi sampajano satima. And so sampajano means will develop this. So a person who is mindful will develop this clear comprehension, and with that realization, we will then start developing a different understanding. So we will not look into something with our personal views, personal fixed understanding, what I have been using the word filtering processes. So every encounter is filtered before or is conclusively judged. So we already make an opinion when we try to look into something, or this is this, and then sometimes because of that we come to a conclusion with that judgmental attitude. Then it is not what we say clearly seen, it is seen with your personal experience or your personal understanding, and therefore the reality could be different. But the moment we develop some understanding of changing nature, then there is a chance of developing that realization. So it can be not just in the objects as matter, not just in the object as what you see. So it can be physical or non-physical objects. So physical objects, so sound, taste, feelings as sensation, and the mind as thoughts arising. So even thoughts arising becomes very difficult for us to, because we always see some thoughts as danger or as it's not good. We see some thoughts that we want to have, or some emotions we see because we know the experience that we have had. So when certain thoughts do arise, we also develop a different conditioned thinking. That is what we referred to last week. We get conditioned through our own thoughts sometimes. We get conditioned through some objects that we encounter through our senses, and mind being the sixth sense. So from all the six senses, whatever arises can be the conditioning factors for what we conclusively, judgmentally be. Then we are the conditioned, so sankhata. So it is important to train our mind to see things quite differently. And therefore, most of us who are into meditation will use the breathing as an object. So we use breathing as an object, and even in this session we use breathing. And as always, we say, because we don't force ourselves to breathe, it is easy and it becomes a very nice tool to develop this, or realization, as what we say, clear comprehension. So when we focus our attention to breathing, we see different ways of observing the breath. As much as breathing helps us to develop, or the technique that we use helps us to develop concentration by purposely giving the mind a job to do, which is to observe the breath or look at the breath. But whilst we are doing that, we also establish mindfulness. So we establish mindfulness means we realize or try to know or understand where the mind exists, so that we can see the mind, if it is a wandering mind or if it is a thinking mind, so we observe what is happening as it is happening. So it is like a dual practice. While we use the breath as a focal point, so we use the attention or the awareness skills to notice what the mind is doing at the given moment. So let us just focus today on how we watch the breath. So most of you who have been joining me, we have been watching the breath. While watching the breath, we have been noticing that the mind might wander, and I have been telling you to retrieve or bring back the mind to your breath again. So we use the technique called recognize, release, and return. So wherever your mind goes, whatever channel of the six senses, so we just recognize that, then we free ourselves from that. We don't get involved with the thoughts, and we let go and come back. But while we develop this understanding, so today let us just focus on this breathing. So when we breathe, when you focus our breath, having closed our eyes, we watch the breath. And when you watch the breath, we will first know that the breathing is taking place. So being mindful that there is breathing happening in your body. So breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. So once we are aware of this, once we know this, so we then observe a bit differently. So we train ourselves to observe quite differently. So we see it as long breath or a short breath. Now we don't purposely take long breaths, and this is where the understanding realization is happening. We're not purposely taking long breath, but as it happens, if it happens, we know that this is a long breath. So we'll start seeing the breath as duration. Long breath, short breath. So if it is long in breath, we know that this is long in breath, short in breath. So as this is happening, now the Buddha in the Anapanasati Sutta wants us to understand or train ourselves in this way. You see the breath as a whole, as one unit. So you see the breath as a whole. So that means you are being with the breath as it happens. So breathing in and you stop. Breathing out. So you take that whole breath as breathing in, breathing out. Now, however you see it now, because the breath is not meditation, okay, that is just an object. Neither is a nostril or neither is your body. But whatever the breath, when the action of breath is taking place, everything that is connected with it can be used as object. So when you see the breath as a whole, which is, the word is called sabbakaya, so the whole body, whole unit, sabbakaya, or as a whole breath. So what with this one, what happens is we are seeing breath very differently, because it's not a physical thing to sort of sense or touch. It is something that is happening, and there is no perhaps likes or dislikes. It happens automatically. There is no smell, because smell is a different nasal sensation that we have. So there's nothing to imagine and make it subjective. There's nothing to compare it to. So we don't have this imaginative working going on, because for other things, when you see a flower, we make connections. When we see something that you like, we make connections. Something that you dislike, we make connections and become judgment. So we are training our mind to be non-judgmental by just watching the breath. So we are developing our skills to observe the breath as it happens in its own way. So the training is happening. It's not like when we see an object and start working on it. Because when you see an object, when you hear an object, there is always a like or a dislike happening. So this gong that I do in meditation, so there is, we form a like to it. But in the breath, it's not happening. There's nothing to like in the breath that you inhale or exhale. But when we see an object, when you hear a sound, we connect it to something and form an opinion. So the training of the mind with the watching the breath is, there's nothing to sort of imagine and work on. So simply we are training ourselves to see the breath as it happens as a whole. And then then when you train yourself to see as a whole breath, then if you take that as, then there is some sort of start and end. So that's why for those who are really beginners, I said use the counting. So try to pinpoint as soon as the in-breath is happening as one. So there's a starting of the in-breath, there is the continuity as two, and there is the end being three. And then when you start exhaling, 3, 2, one. So that whole breath, or that whole body of unit of breath can be seen as start, continuity, and finishing. So you are with the breath. So you have to train yourself to see that. Start, so 1, 2, 3, if you want to use the counting. Otherwise, see that split second of the switching of from the end to the start of the next. So either it's in breath or out breath. So if you train your mind, with great attention, so you are then seeing the start of the breath and end of the breath clearly. And this is quite important to continue to see this while it's in your practice, because this is where, when there is sensation, so for example, when you use the body as when you take a breath, you can see that the breathing is taking place, and there is a bit of a change in the body, and there is a bit of change when you exhale as well. So you can observe that. What is it doing to the body? So last week we referred that sometimes breath can be connected to your thought processes. So when you sigh, like that. So there are changes in the breath happening, because it's long, it's short, it's moving, it's fluctuating in the length sometimes. It's all part of the connection to the body. And you see that happen while it's happening. And you see that. So sometimes when you breathe in, you feel a bit refreshed, perhaps. When you breathe out, you're relaxing. And sometimes when the body is, when you take a long breath and you see that, and as you relax, then there is a bit of a shallow or relaxing tone even in the breath. So the duration changes. So you see that there is nothing, even the breath has not got a permanent duration. There is no permanent duration of the breath. And you observe every breath is different. Every in-breath, every out-breath is different. And if you see that, you are clearly seeing as it is happening. So because you're not controlling that, it's not happening you're not controlling the breath patterns at all, because you're observing the breath as it is happening. Whether you want to label it the quality of breath or the result of the breath. So it's just to see that as it is happening. It's quite important training, because in terms of the sensation or in terms of your emotion, then there's always that observation that we have to make, the start of it, the end of it. Because it is from the breathing training that we get Sabbakaya Patisangveda. So we will look at it as a whole and see. So how can this be used in other terms? It's when you are mindful, when you're mindful of this as it is happening, then you can slowly also be mindful of thoughts when it arises, and we don't get involved. As much as we're not getting involved with the breath at all, we don't get involved with the thought when it is sad thought, happy thought. When we see things, we don't get involved. So the training is quite important, and it is during that meditation sitting sessions you get this training. Completely purposely looking at the breath without any involvement, but observing as it happens, observing the reaction the body does or has based on that breath. So observing is quite important as it happens. So breathing in and breathing out. So we will take that approach today to just observe the breath and notice as it is happening, without involvement. So there's no control in the breath, and there is just observation without judgment. There's no judgment. So once again, remember our basic rules. So should your mind wander, observe it. So what it is, don't stay there, don't get involved with your thoughts. Whatever you encounter, let it go, so release and come back. So return to your breathing. So recognize, release, return. If you want to meditate longer than our 20 minutes, then you can turn off the speaker, so that if we finish our session, you can continue to meditate. Some of you meditate for more than half an hour, so you can turn off the speaker so that it doesn't affect your meditation and the concentration and mindfulness practice that's happening. So establishing mindfulness based on breathing, anapana sati. So you establish mindfulness based on in-breath and out-breath. So you train your mind to see it as it is happening in a couple. So this is to do with the breath as a whole, or observing the breath and noticing the breath as it happens, when it happens, and the duration from long or short to the start, continuity, and the end. So you can adjust yourself if you are leaning. Come a bit forward, right hand on your left palm, feet firm on the ground, floor, sorry. So once you've adjusted your posture, we can meditate. First of all, it's easy to quickly settle down if you scan your body and purposely look at something. So the best thing is to observe the structure of your body. Be mindful of the way your body structure is, upright body, balanced body. And if you're sitting on a sofa or a chair, you might notice the weight or the pressure. So body is bent at your hips and also bent at your knees. Feet firm on the floor. If you're sitting cross-legged, your side of your legs, your ankles might be touching the floor. Otherwise, your feet firm. So if you see the whole body, it is still, calm, peaceful. There is absence of movement, and that stillness is quite different from the other times of your day-to-day activities. You are awake, but you are not moving. Most of the time when we sleep, we may not move, but now you are awake, but you are still not moving. So that stillness is the training that you are giving yourself, and that's the way the mind should also try to develop. To be still. So to stop thinking, we give the mind a job to do, because if there is nothing, the mind will always go either to history, to memories, or even to future planning. So we will train our mind to be still, so the mind will observe the breath. So always remember establishing mindfulness on breath, but also noticing whatever the mind engages with. If it is wandering, we note it is wandering. If it is in the pain or the sensation, we note as it is and let it go and come back to your breathing. So if it is to the reaction of the pain or reaction to a thought, we note what the mind is doing at the given moment, and then we come back to breathing. And if there is anything that is changing, we note it, the absence of pain to the presence of pain. But first we train and we try our best to keep our mind with the breath. So just observe that breath. First know that you are breathing in. So sometimes the sensation in your nostrils will make you feel that you are breathing in, or make you know you are breathing in. Breathing in, breathing out. So notice the breath. After a couple of breaths, you will notice that the breath has slowly changed and become gentle, or the duration might be the same. Long breath, short breath, they are both reactions of the body or reaction of the mind, because when you are stressful, you huff and puff, you take long breaths. So the need of the body is indicated in the breath. So if the mind also becomes, or thinks something, or plans something, it's linked to the breath as well. So simply observe breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Remember, if it is a long breath, note it is a long in-breath, long out-breath, short in-breath, short out-breath, if it is happening in that way. And as you begin to note the duration, long or short, try to see the beginning of the in-breath and continue to stay with that in-breath, and as soon as it finishes, realize that, note the finish of the in-breath. Similarly, out-breath, start, continuity and finish. Breathing in, breathing out. If you're new, you can do the counting method 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1 to train yourself. If your mind wanders, remember to recognize, let it go, and come back to breathing. Even if it is the irritation or sensation, thinking, planning, whatever it is, notice it as soon as you're aware that you have wandered. Don't involve with it, let it go. Come back to breathing. So that is the end of our today's session. So thank you for joining with us. If you want to continue practicing mindfulness-based practice, meditation, do join us every Thursday. We go live at 7 o'clock, and then after our chanting session that finishes around 7:30, we begin our meditation practice based on mindfulness every Thursday. Otherwise, we still go live every day at 7 o'clock, sharing our evening worship and chanting and meditation on loving kindness. Thank you for joining us today. Have a very good evening. Stay safe, take care, and good night.